Morning, everyone. Josh here, Solopreneur Grind. It is the SG Daily number 85. It's November the 15th, and you can't see it if you're watching on YouTube. I guess I could turn the camera, but there is a lot of snow on the ground up here in the Great White North. I don't know why, because it's the middle of November, November 15th, smack dab in the middle to be exact, but it's part of the risk that we take in living here. So anyways, hope your week is going well. The snow definitely affects things a little bit, but it's not too cold yet, so that's okay. The last week or so, I've pretty much been neck deep in marketing. And so typically for these dailies, I like to chat about, I like to chat about what I'm neck deep in because I find that it's much easier to talk about that content, and it could be so much more when it's so much more top of mind. It's just easier to talk about. I can go into more detail. I can give specific examples in really good detail. So I'm going to talk about marketing, long story short. And what I kind of realized is, especially if you're a solopreneur, or if you're at a startup, or if you're just early on, that actually being restricted by money is actually a pretty good thing for one or two reasons. I think the main reason why actually being strapped for cash in terms of early marketing is because it forces you to actually do all the really hard work that has to go into marketing in order for it to be effective. And what I mean by that is, if you do have a lot of money, it can be really easy to hire a marketing agency or throw out a bunch of Facebook ads or pay a bunch of influencers to do marketing for you, in quotation marks, if you're listening on the podcast and you couldn't see that. And you're missing out on a few things by doing that early on, right? If you get to a certain point where you kind of know what you're doing, and you know who your customer is, and you know kind of what works and what doesn't, or you just have a ton of money and can work with a very good agency, then sure, maybe it makes sense. But if you're a solopreneur, especially if you're a solopreneur on a budget, or you're a tech startup, or any startup without funding, then if you skip the first few important steps to marketing, I think it'll set you back. And the reason for that is, if you have to do it all yourself, you really have to go through all the key important steps to marketing and sales, really. And what I think those are is, I've kind of boiled it down to kind of three steps that I'm going through right now. Number one is sort of exploratory and focused on the customer, right? So number one is, you really need to learn a lot about who it is that you're targeting. And actually, even before step one, you might want to figure out exactly who you're going to try and target first, right? So it's one thing to get to know your target market, but if you don't know who the target market is, you should definitely figure that out first. So I'll give you a quick example. I'm building an immigration platform right now to help people immigrate to Canada for free. And the two demographics that I'm targeting are tech workers in India, just because there's a large volume of them that want to move here, that are typically eligible for immigration, and recent graduates already in Canada, because they have gone through part of the immigration process, but they need to get the next step in order to stay here. But if I didn't know that, I wouldn't even know, I couldn't get to the next step, or I couldn't do it well, right? Which is, you need to learn a lot about them, right? So now that you have that target in mind, go talk to a bunch of them, or research a bunch of them, or surround yourself with a bunch of them. But again, if that market is too broad, right? If you're just targeting 25-year-old males who live in the US, that's not very specific. And any market research or research whatsoever is going to be super broad and super vague. And there's just too many people that could encompass, right? So you want to get pretty narrow. It can be one or two or even three demographics, but pick 2 to 3 at most, and then do that research phase, right? Talk to a bunch of them, interview a bunch of them, read about a bunch of them, go on forums where they all hang out, go to events where they all hang out, stuff like that. So find out everything about them. Number two is, once you know almost everything about them, is you need to figure out the best ways to market to them. And there's a variety of ways, right? You could spend money on ads. You could create content. You could throw events. You could cold email, you could cold phone call, you could, there's a million things. And there's no right answer, unfortunately. I think that's probably the toughest part about marketing is there is no right answer. You can use data to find what is probably one of the better answers, and I'll get to that in my kind of third step. But it's very subjective in the sense that there is no right answer, right? And what might work for one company or what might have worked for you for a different company when you ran a different company, or even when you marketed a different product or service for your own company, might not work for this one. So number 2 is find 2 or 3 of these avenues to market and test, right? Because you don't know which one's going to win. So pick 2 or 3 that are efficient, not only in the ability to test, but in terms of cost and time. So it's efficient to test and could be an efficient way to market in general. Now, that doesn't mean it has to scale, right? Because what's become very prevalent lately is to do things that don't scale. And I think it's for a very good reason, which is at the beginning, you really need to get to know the people that you're marketing to, what their reactions are, what's working and what's not. So in my situation, I'm using the combination of Facebook ads because they are super cheap and you can get really targeted with them. So that's helpful. Number 2 is content marketing primarily through blogs and social sharing. So just the content that I'm covering, it just fits really well for blog posts and being able to share them on social media and stuff like that. So that's why I haven't gone the YouTube route yet. Maybe I should, I'm not sure, but there's only so many hours in the day and the blog stuff has been good. And hopefully with SEO, it'll be a good pairing. And then thirdly is I'm flirting with the idea of running some either in-person or online events. So I'm already doing online kind of classes where users can tune in and chat and learn about stuff, but also, especially for the Canadian targets, is the in-person, workshops and stuff like that to help educate. So testing all those. Number 3, the third step is test them, have a period of time that you're going to test for and when you're going to reevaluate and what some of the goals are, right? So for example, with Facebook ads, those are really easy to test in 1 or 2 days, right? If you put 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a day on ads, you can learn pretty quickly which ones work, which ones don't, because it'll tell you all the data, right? All the numbers are right there. It's kind of creepy actually, but it's really useful. So you can see clear as day, if I run 3 ads and I put 20 bucks in per day, 10 to 20 per day, I'm typically between 10 and 15 per day. But what I've learned is the more you put in, the quicker you can get obviously a better